am your host, Shank Rock. You could call me Shank Rock, or you could just call me Shank. But before I get started with this demonstration, I would like to read my copyright disclaimer. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. What that means is that everything that you hear in this demonstration is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Everything that you hear in this video that I call a demonstration is allegedly. It's only the opinions of mine and others. I want to welcome everybody to this demonstration. Trump wants to know, why do white Christians and black Christians vote differently? Why do white Christians vote Republican? Why do black Christians vote Democrat? Salute, Pretty Problem Niche. I appreciate you for pulling up. We just going to jump straight into this demonstration. This is one of those demonstrations that cannot wait no longer.
Political and social conservatism built on Nixon's prior success and turned the South bright red. Between 1968 and 1988, the Republican Party had become the party of white, Christian, conservative America. And the Democratic Party was now the party of radical progressive leftists and hippies. Oh, and black church ladies. Right. About that. Black Christians are socially conservative. They're theologically conservative. So why aren't they politically conservative too? Black Christians and white Christians vote very differently, partly because their histories and life experiences are vastly different. When white Christians look at the Supreme Court, for example, they see the reason abortion is legal and school prayer isn't. But when black Christians look at the Supreme Court, they see the reason they can vote and pursue housing and employment without blatant discrimination.
I want to stop right there. And I want us to focus on what the gentleman said. When white Christians, when white people, period, when it comes to voting, they look at things to pretty much stay the same. The white Republicans. When the black Democrats, when they look at voting, they're looking for things to change. So you got two different perspectives on this voting and what has to happen. The white people, they're looking at it like, okay, when it comes to abortion, okay, when it comes to economics, when it comes to healthcare, they're basically looking for it to stay the same. When it comes to the black Democrats, that the Christians, they looking at it like, hey, we witnessed, and for most of us, some of us was around during those times, but we've seen the history books. We've seen the pictures. We've been told about what was done to our ancestors early on in this country. So we're looking for things to change. Now, the million-dollar question is, will things change? I'm going to ask you, him, and her. Will things change? There's an up-and-coming election. And you have the Democrat Party candidate at this time is leading. You have the Republican Party candidate behind. But if you are a white Christian and you are a Republican, this question is for you. If you are Democrat, if you are a black Christian and you are a Democrat, this question is for you. Why? Why do the white Christians belong to the Republican Party, and why do the black Christians belong to the Democrat Party? I'm going to tell y'all. But first, I want us to take some lessons. I want us to go to history lessons. So that way, when I come with my commentary, you pretty much already have a brief history on where I'm going at with this. Salute, Suntan. I see you, Suntan. So let's get a brief history lesson.
Why do white Christians vote Republican and black Christians vote Democrat? Everyone knows conservative Christians vote Republican. It's like one of the rules of nature. The sun comes up in the east and conservative Christians vote Republican. Unless they're black. Oh, right, most African Americans self-identify as Christian, and most African Americans vote Democrat. Look at the numbers. In 2016, 81% of white evangelical Christians voted for Donald Trump. For many Christians, it's just assumed the Republican Party is the party for Christians. But what about black Christians? Pew Research interviewed validated voters after the 2016 election, people they could verify actually voted. When they looked at black Protestant Christians, there is no official category for black evangelicals because most pollsters have decided evangelical is a white term, but that's a whole different video. When we look at black Protestant Christians, 96% voted for Hillary Clinton, the Democrat. 96%. So 81% of white evangelical Christians voted for Trump, and 96% of black Protestant Christians voted for Clinton. And it's pretty much like that in every election. White evangelicals vote Republican, and black Protestants vote Democrat. Why is that? Don't they read the same Bible, pray to the same God? Which group doesn't understand that they're voting for the wrong party?
Can somebody answer that? Salute, Mel. I see you, Mel. Salute, Mel. Can somebody answer that? Which of the two hasn't realized that they're voting for the wrong party? Same Bible. And y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. The black Christians that are Democrats and the white Christians that are Republican, they're reading from the same Bible. They pray to the same God. They follow the same religious concepts. So why are the white Christians voting Republican? Why are the black Christians voting Democrat? Have any of y'all, have that question ever crossed any of y'all mind? So why is it? Salute, Eye of the Storm. I see you, Eye of the Storm. Why is it? Which one of the parties are voting wrong? I'm going to ask the question, and I want you all to answer the question. Which one is voting wrong? Is it the white Christians that are Republicans, or is it the black Christians that are Democrats? Which one has this thing wrong? Let me know. I'm going back to some more, but y'all let me know.
To make things even more confusing, if we go back to 1890, these guys were Republicans and these guys were Democrats.
Stop right there. Stop right there. Now we went back to 1860. These are your Democrats. These are your Democrats. These are your Republicans. So we see, and I'm sure we all know who's representing the Democrats. Why is black Christians, why do black Christians vote Democrat when these guys right here are the face, are the behind the scenes of the Democrat Party?
What happened? How did we end up where we are today? Well, let's go back and find out. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. Since they had this guy to thank for it, and the brand new Republican Party, and since most Southern slave owners at the time were Democrats, almost all African Americans voted Republican. In fact, the first 23 black congressmen were all Republicans.
The first 20 black, let me backtrack. Salute Curvy Kai. Salute Curvy Kai.
Owners at the time were Democrats, almost all African Americans voted Republican. In fact, the first 23 black congressmen were all Republicans.
The first 23 black congressmen were Republicans. The first black 23 congressmen were Republicans.
Not all Southern Democrats were these guys, but enough of them were that newly enfranchised African Americans were not likely to vote Democrat anytime soon. Most Southern Democrats considered themselves conservatives. That sounds weird to hear. Everyone knows Republicans are conservative and Democrats are liberal. But the two parties didn't shake out so clearly on conservative and liberal until the 1970s and 80s. Conservative Southern Democrats look back in history to happier days, the glory days of the South before Abe Lincoln and those darn Yankees messed up everything. Those darn Yankees. I think that's a Disney film. But Honest Abe didn't last forever, as you may have heard, and things got messy for black Americans pretty quick. Republican presidents kept federal troops in the South to ensure African Americans could vote. But when the 1876 election was in a deadlock, with both parties claiming victory, America was in danger of falling into civil war again. A group of Northern Republicans and Southern Democrats met in secret and made a deal.
I wonder what that deal was. A group of Northern Republicans and Southern Democrats had a secret meeting. Let's backtrack.
The Civil War again. A group of Northern Republicans and Southern Democrats met in secret and made a deal. Rutherford Hayes, the Republican candidate, would become president. In exchange, all federal troops, the ones protecting black rights, would be removed from the South. Yep.
Wow.
The Republicans sort of threw Southern black people under the bus.
Now, I do hear that Republicans always make reference to the Democrat being the plantation for blacks, but according to my man right here, the Republicans threw blacks to the wolves, threw us under the bus. What's up with that? Salute, beautiful. I see you, beautiful nightmare.
Deal. Rutherford Hayes, the Republican candidate, would become president. In exchange, all federal troops, the ones protecting black rights, would be removed from the South. Yep, Northern Republicans sort of threw Southern black people under the bus. After the federal troops were gone, the guys in the pointy hats clamped down hard, and most African Americans now had a hard time voting for anyone. New Jim Crow laws stripped away many of the rights they had just won. So for many black people, the Compromise of 1877 felt like a betrayal at the hands of the Republican Party. Then comes the Great Migration. Living with these guys in charge wasn't much fun, to put it mildly. So millions of African Americans abandoned the South for jobs in new factories in northern cities like Chicago, Cleveland, and Philadelphia.
And for those that wonder why, because majority of blacks were in the South, the Great Migration is what caused blacks to leave the South and go up north.
And guess what? In the North, you could vote. Many transplanted African Americans still felt a loyalty to the party of Lincoln. But given the fact that no one in Washington was paying much attention to the needs of black families, the NAACP in 1926 argued that blacks should be loyal to neither party. Between 1868 and 1898, 22 African American representatives were sent to Congress from the South. After federal troops left, Bourbon Democrats' elimination of black votes was so complete that when Oscar DePriest was elected to Congress from Chicago in 1929, there hadn't been an African American in Congress for 30 years. What?
Now, if in the late 1800s, the NAACP told the blacks that we shouldn't be loyal to either party, what happened? Salute, Miss Parker. Salute, 80s, baby.
Like all the black congressmen from the 19th century, DePriest was a Republican. And then the Depression. Black workers in northern cities were hit hard, with unemployment rates twice as high as white workers. Underwhelmed by Republican President Herbert Hoover's response to the crisis, Americans of all stripes, including African Americans, found hope in the progressive New Deal programs of Franklin Roosevelt, a Democrat. Roosevelt received overwhelming support from Northern black voters. When the next African American candidate, Arthur Mitchell, also from Chicago, won a seat in Congress in 1934, he was something Washington had never seen before: a black Democrat. Over the next 20 years, African Americans continued voting for both Republican and Democratic candidates, and various civil rights measures were proposed by both Democrats and Republicans. Though today this seems hard to believe, there used to be conservative and progressive wings of both parties. In the Democratic Party, the progressives were northern urban Democrats. The conservatives were the Southerners, which of course included these guys. In the Republican Party, the progressives were folks like the liberally minded Rockefeller family. For years, to be a progressive Republican was to be a Rockefeller Republican. The conservative wing was made up of those who wanted the federal government to stay small and stay out of their business. Both conservative Northern Republicans and conservative Southern Democrats opposed the federal government getting bigger and launching more programs. So from the early days of Roosevelt's New Deal right up through the 1960s, a coalition of conservative Republicans and conservative Democrats managed to block just about every attempt at new civil rights legislation. In fact,
Did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? Now we getting somewhere. Let's backtrack. Now we're getting somewhere. Let's backtrack, and then I'm going to come and give a brief description and commentary.
More programs. So from the early days of Roosevelt's New Deal right up through the 1960s, a coalition of conservative Republicans and conservative Democrats managed to block just about every attempt at new civil rights legislation.
Let's stop right there. Let's stay right there. The 1960s were in the 60s. A selective group of Republicans, a selected group of Democrats did everything that they could do to what? To block civil rights. Who was fighting for these civil rights? Black people, African American, melanated, whomever you choose to identify yourself with, but men and women of color, both parties. So we're seeing in history, now this is history. This is history. We're seeing throughout history, both parties were playing ping pong. And who were they using as the ball, or who were they using as the piece? Yes, you and I. So why is it in the year 2024, why do you have black people loyal to either party? I knew it was a reason why I held my vote. See, I held my vote for a reason, because I know how important my vote is. Not sure if you know how important your vote is. Maybe that's why your ass gave up your vote for free. The importance of one's vote carries a lot of weight if that person knows the value of the vote. Where you going at with this, Shank Rock? The value of your vote. Why do they target, and they target different communities? Don't get it twisted. The black vote is not the only vote that the politicians target. They target the immigrant vote. They target the LGBT community vote. They target middle-aged white women votes. Why? What is it in that vote? I know y'all never thought of that before. Only Shank Rock could get y'all to think of that. Stay right there, and I'm going to come back. But I want y'all to stay focused on the value of your vote. But as I said, and we're just getting a brief history lesson, both parties have been playing ping pong with the black people.
In fact, between 1953 and 1965, more than 120 civil rights measures were considered by the Senate. Almost every one was killed by the Senate Judiciary Committee.
Wow. Where are my political scholars at? Where are my political scholars? I don't see any of y'all down there in the chat. Did you hear this? Where are my history buffers at? Come on, chat. Talk to me. Talk to the old man.
To block just about every attempt at new civil rights legislation. In fact, between 1953 and 1965, more than 120 civil rights measures were considered by the Senate. Almost every one was killed by the Senate Judiciary Committee, a powerful committee at the time controlled by Southern Democrats and conservative Northern Republicans.
Both parties. And this is why you all instructed me that, Shank, the most important elections is your local elections. And I want to thank everybody for pointing that out to me, because I didn't know until many of you pointed it out to me that your local elections is where it counts. But as we can see, once again, both parties playing games with the black people. Are y'all following me?
Powerful committee at the time controlled by Southern Democrats and conservative Northern Republicans. As the years went by, many more of the new civil rights efforts were proposed by Northern Democrats and fewer by Republicans, motivating more black Americans to vote Democrat with regularity. Yet Southern Democrats were still stalling or blocking nearly every bill. The strain between pro-civil rights Northern Democrats and anti-civil rights Southern Democrats was reaching a breaking point, and that break would radically alter American politics. Meet Strom. Strom Thurmond ran for president in 1948 and served in the Senate from 1954 till 2003. Yes, that's a very long time. His career almost perfectly illustrates the shift in political parties over the last 80 years. Strom Thurmond was a Southern Democrat and governor of South Carolina in the late 1940s. He hadn't had a huge problem with Roosevelt's New Deal since Roosevelt didn't mess with segregation in the South. But when Roosevelt's Democratic successor, Harry Truman, integrated the Army in 1948 and proposed aggressive civil rights legislation, Southern Democrats like Thurmond had had enough. Thurmond and a group of Southern Democrats protested by forming the States' Rights Democratic Party, a conservative party dedicated to preserving segregation. Thurmond ran for president against Truman in 1948. A sample of his stump speech: "There's not enough troops in the Army to force the Southern people to break down segregation and admit the Negro race into our theaters, into our swimming pools, into our homes, and into our churches. No Negroes for me, thank you." That was pretty much it. Thurmond lost to Truman badly, and his Dixiecrat Party, that was their nickname because States' Rights Democratic Party was a mouthful, the Dixiecrat Party disbanded. Thurmond ran for Senate as a Southern Democrat and spent the next 20 years fighting to maintain racial segregation in the South. But the tide was turning against the segregationist Southern Democrats as progressive Northern Democrats and Rockefeller Republicans tried again and again to pass civil rights legislation. In 1960, with civil rights protests really heating up in the South, Northern Democrat John F. Kennedy won the White House. Kennedy was initially reluctant to take a strong stand on civil rights, fearing he would lose all Southern support for the rest of his agenda. But after watching attempts to integrate Southern universities end in violence, Kennedy spoke up. In a speech to the nation on June 11, 1963, Kennedy labeled civil rights a moral issue and promised a major civil rights bill to end discrimination against African Americans. 5 months later, Kennedy was assassinated.
And that's when pretty much the end of our quest for civil rights went out the window. They say that none of the presidents, they claim Abraham Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln allegedly freed the slaves. But they always have said when they assassinated Kennedy, the reason why he was assassinated 5 days after the civil rights that I call black agendas, black issues, is just another name for civil rights. But 5 days after he was assassinated, 5 days he came up with knowing and pushing that agenda that civil rights was morally, he was assassinated. And if y'all notice, everything that was under the civil rights umbrella, everything that was in the civil rights package, y'all know my number one thing that was in there, reparations for black people. See, all of that was included. Yes. Discrimination, housing, all of that, reparations, all of that was included in the Civil Rights Bill, the Civil Rights Package that today me along with others call black issues. It went out the window. What happened? It's very deep, Aunt Esther. Salute, Aunt Esther. It's very deep. I'm going to take y'all back. I'm going to give my commentary, but when I found this, I watched it 4 different times. 4 different times. I watched it. And I said, wow. I said, he nailed it. And there's more. There's more. I said, he nailed it. I said, my man nailed it. I said, so I got to bring this to you all so you all can hear it for yourselves. You all can go back. Many of you already know this. Many of you didn't know this. I didn't even know the things that he's saying in this. Some of them I knew, but he put this together very, very well. He put it together very well. So let's go back to some more history lessons.
His successor, Lyndon Johnson, vowed to finish the fight for civil rights in honor of Kennedy. And, propelled by goodwill toward Kennedy and aided by progressive Republicans, Johnson was able to pass the raft of legislation that would end segregation in America. For segregationists like Strom Thurmond, the fact that Johnson, a Southern Democrat, had led the charge was the last straw. In 1964, Thurmond announced that going forward, he was a Republican. Over the next few years, segregationist Democrats like Thurmond jumped to the Republican Party in droves, and the South began shifting from blue to red. The identity of the Democratic Party as progressive was settling in, and a new wave of conservative Republicans was about to shift the brand there as well. The Republican candidate for president that year represented a new conservative turn for the party. Barry Goldwater was definitely not a Rockefeller Republican. He hoped to pick up disenfranchised Southern Democrats by opposing the Civil Rights Bill. And his message of states' rights and limited federal government sounded a lot like what segregationists had been saying for years. As a result, Goldwater won the Deep South, but failed in every other state except his home state of Arizona. 4 years later, Republican Richard Nixon tried again, appealing to white suburbanites frightened by scenes of urban riots on TV, with his message of law and order. Goldwater and Nixon were experimenting with a new Southern strategy, focusing on the newly christened Sunbelt states from Florida to California, and appealing to conservative white voters who felt the country was changing too fast and headed in the wrong direction. Nixon figured if he turned the South red, he could win the White House without needing to appeal to urban liberals or black voters at all. He was right. Fast forward to 1980. Ronald Reagan raised eyebrows by launching his presidential campaign in the Deep South with a pledge of support for states' rights. Critics took it as a coded appeal to Dixiecrats, the old states' rights party of segregationist Southern Democrats. The fact that Reagan launched his campaign and talked about states' rights in a Mississippi county best known as the site of the murder of 3 civil rights workers didn't help. Reagan's political and social conservatism built on Nixon's prior success and turned the South bright red. Between 1968 and 1988, the Republican Party had become the party of white, Christian, conservative America.
This where it gets deep, y'all. You think what you heard before was deep. Listen, it gets real deep right here.
And the Democratic Party was now the party of radical progressive leftists and hippies. Oh, and black church ladies.
Black church ladies. Have it ever dawned on y'all that the majority of black people that go to church are black ladies, black women? And it's been that way for a very, very long time. Is that the reason behind majority of black Christians voting Democrat? Does that have anything to do with it? Sure it does. And I'll speak on it in my commentary.
That. Black Christians are socially conservative. They're theologically conservative. So why aren't they politically conservative too? Black Christians and white Christians vote very differently, partly because their histories and life experiences are vastly different. When white Christians look at the Supreme Court, for example, they see the reason abortion is legal and school prayer isn't. But when black Christians look at the Supreme Court, they see the reason they can vote and pursue housing and employment without blatant discrimination. That difference in perspective has a huge impact on whether you see the federal government as part of the problem or part of the solution. Having the right to hear a Christian prayer in your local public school doesn't mean much if you're not allowed to attend your local public school. And think about the words progressive and conservative. A progressive believes things should be improved by making progress, by moving forward, by progressing. A conservative believes the good things we presently have are at risk of being lost and need to be conserved, or even revived from the past. So the best way to explain why white Christians vote for conservative candidates and black Christians vote for progressive candidates may simply be this. What do we see when we look in the rearview mirror? White Christians see a simpler time, when everyone went to church, when we prayed in school, when abortion was illegal and gender roles were clear. When black Christians look in the rearview mirror, the view is very different. They see fire hoses and church bombings and lynchings. They see Strom Thurmond saying, "We will never let Negroes into our theaters, swimming pools, homes, or churches." They see white Christians applauding Strom Thurmond for saying that, and then re-electing him to the Senate for 5 decades until he dies in office in 2003 at the age of 100. Is this beginning to make sense? There are other issues. Conservative white Christians see sin mostly as an individual problem, wrongs committed by one person against another, requiring only individual confession and repentance as the solution. Black Christians also see sin as a systemic problem, sinful systems needing broader solutions and broader confession and repentance. So to wrap all this up, it really doesn't help that we've only got 2 viable parties, and that we've decided one is for people who want things to change, and the other is for people who want things to stay the same. I'm oversimplifying, but you get the point. The Bible calls us to hold on to what is good, while also working toward what is best, to conserve and progress. And neither party lines up with that very well. But I hope at least now you understand how Christians from different backgrounds can read the same Bible, pray to the same God, and come to very different conclusions about who's going to get their vote.
And it was laid out very, very well. A big shout out to my man. And I will put the link to this in the comment section. So for all those that would like to watch this on their own, watch that demonstration on its own, check the comment section of this demonstration. He just basically nailed it. And see, I get a lot of white people, not all, but I get a lot of white people that says to me, it's not about color, it's not about race. Let me just go ahead and get y'all out the way early. Sure, it's about race. Sure, for the simple fact, as he broke it down, when white people look at voting, white people look at voting completely different from how black people look at voting. White people, you looking at voting, you looking at whoever's going to get in the office is for basically, okay, we want things to stay this way. We ain't really too fond on things changing. Why should y'all be, excited about things changing? Because if things change, then what y'all have benefit off of for all these years will no longer be there. Such as a little of white privilege, it goes out the window. But with black people, when the black people vote, we ain't really never had it too good in this country. So when we voting, we looking for things to change from a morally perspective. Do y'all realize, white America and the rest of America, do y'all realize that black people we're still trying to get the civil rights. We're trying to get rights that immigrants come to this country and immigrants have these same rights that black people are fighting for in this country. We are still trying to get those same rights. The LGBT community, they get these rights that we still are fighting for. The Asians, there is an Asian hate bill that was put into place. Why hasn't there been a hate bill for us? Now, when we talk about these civil rights issues, when we talk about the black agendas, when we talk about anything that's pertaining to black people, it's always, well, this country is just not only for black people, this country is for everybody. Sounds familiar? And you're right. This country is not just for black people. This country is for everybody. However, black people are the only group of people that's still fighting for civil rights. Can I get the church to say amen to that? If it's nothing else you agree with me on, surely you agree with me on that. And you don't have to be black to agree with me on that. Why is it still to this day that black people are still marching? We're still protesting. We're still fighting for our civil rights, basic rights that animals get. If an animal gets slaughtered in the streets, it'll be an uproar. If a black man or black woman gets slaughtered in the streets or gets slaughtered in a home, it's always, well, what did that black man do? Surely that black woman had to do something for the officer to have shot her. But if if a dog gets slaughtered in the streets, whoever it is, even if it's an officer, that officer is looking to do jail time. See, so I wanted to do this demonstration because America allegedly, supposedly be land of the free. But are we all free? Now, let's come back to the political lane. We both heard how both parties have threw black people under the bus. So I'll ask y'all, why are you loyal to the Republican Party? Why are you loyal to the Democrat Party? That's a question only you can answer. Why are you loyal to the Republican Party? Why are you loyal to the Democrat Party? Now, for my white Christians, why do white Christians vote Republican? Why do the majority of white Christians vote Republican? Why have y'all been voting Republican? Ms. Groovy says, in honor of Michael Jackson's birthday, all I want to say is they don't really care about us. I mean, it's right there. My man broke it down. Because I know if I would have broke it down, I know the chat would have been filled with naysayers. I know many of y'all would disagree with me if I said the same thing that my man said. But I'm asking y'all, general question, white Christians, why do y'all vote Republicans? Black Christians, why do y'all vote Democrat? If y'all are reading from the same Bible as the white Christians, what's the confusion? What's the mix-up? What's the division? Because if y'all following the same religious beliefs, then surely when it comes to the political arena, but my man said something real important. He said when black people vote, we don't vote politically. And this is why I always say, when it comes to voting, you got to get out of your feelings. You cannot vote for somebody just because they sound good. You know what I'm talking about? Is that the reason why the majority of black women go to church? Because black women wants you to tell them things that make them feel good. Your hair can be all over the goddamn head. A black woman wants you to tell you, oh baby, you look sexy. Oh baby, you the best thing walking on the streets. And she will accept that, knowing your ass is lying. But the second you tell her, baby, get your ass back in the house looking a mess, she knows what you saying is true, but she gonna have a fit. How dare you talk to me like that? Why you say that? Then she's gonna get on the phone and call up her friends and start telling her friends what you said to her. And instead of her friends saying to her, well, was your hair all over your head? One friend out of the bunch will say it. It's always that one friend out of the bunch that will tell her the truth now. She will tell her, well, is your hair all over your head? And she say, yeah, it's on my, and that one friend will tell her, well, he ain't lying. My plane that I'm landing is, when it comes to voting, we've been played. Do y'all see how we've been played? Do you see how you've been played? Now, let's go back in time. And I'm so glad of this demonstration right here. Let's go back in time. It was a time in America that black people couldn't vote. Pay attention, y'all. Salute Tracy. Salute Freedom. I see y'all. It was a time that black people couldn't vote. Let's find out when black people started to vote and was able to vote.
Everyone knows conservative Christians vote Republican. It's like one of the rules of nature. The sun comes up in the east and conservative Christians vote Republican. Unless they're black. Oh, right. Most African Americans self-identify as Christian, and most African Americans vote Democrat.
Why do most black Americans identify as being Christians? Somebody answer that question. Why do most black Americans identify with being Christians?
Look at the numbers. In 2016, 81% of white evangelical Christians voted for Donald Trump. For many Christians, it's just assumed the Republican Party is the party for Christians. But what about black Christians? Pew Research interviewed validated voters after the 2016 election, people they could verify actually voted. When they looked at black Protestant Christians, there is no official category for black evangelicals because most pollsters have decided evangelical is a white term, but that's a whole different video. When we look at black Protestant Christians, 96% voted for Hillary Clinton, the Democrat. 96%. So 81% of white evangelical Christians voted for Trump, and 96% of black Protestant Christians voted for Clinton. And it's pretty much like that in every election. White evangelicals vote Republican, and black Protestants vote Democrat. Why is that? Don't they read the same Bible, pray to the same God? Which group doesn't understand that they're voting for the wrong party? To make things even more confusing, if we go back to 1890, these guys were Republicans and these guys were Democrats. What happened? How did we end up where we are today? Well, let's go back and find out. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. Since they had this
1870, the 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. 1870, the 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. I'm going to come and do some commentary on that, but I'm going to let this play out a little bit.
Well, let's go back and find out. In 1870, the 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote. Since they had this guy to thank for it, and the brand new Republican Party, and since most Southern slave owners at the time were Democrats, almost all African Americans voted Republican. In fact, the first 23 black congressmen were all Republicans.
So we're going to stay right there. We're going to stay right there. The 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. Abraham Lincoln was a Republican. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. The first 23 black congressmen were all Republican. So that's how we was lined up with the Republican Party. Black men. Where did it change? What shifted things? Black women wasn't voting. Where did it shift and how did it shift? I'm going to go back to my man because my man said, I believe it was the early 1900s when a group of Northern Republicans met with a group of Southern Democrats in a secret meeting. Could that have been the change of the tides? Right? Now, what do we see, as I stated before, when we go to church? The majority of women, 8 out of 10 members in any black church are black women, right? It ain't a coincidence. Why? When the politicians want to gain our votes back in the 70s, in the 80s, and a little bit of the 90s, well, I'm going to give it to the 90s. Remember, back in the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, they always came to the black church. Whenever they wanted the black vote, they came to our black churches. However, fast forward the year of social media, they come to our celebrities and our entertainers, and they also backtrack a little back to the black church. It's the reason why. We all know the story of Adam and Eve. It was a reason why the snake went to Eve. He ain't want to mess around with the man. He ain't want to mess around with Adam. He ain't want to push up on Adam and try to deceive Adam. He thought. He put on his thinking cap. And he thought to play out. If I get her, sound familiar? If I get his woman, I can influence his woman to get to him, and I could get his woman to deceive him. And it's the same demonstration when it comes to this game called politics. We're going to get the woman because, see, the men, it's hard to fool a man. It's hard to pull the wool over a man's eyes. Let's just be honest. That's why, ladies, it was a time when you all would go to get a new car. You all would go to get anything. You all would always take a man with you. Why? Because you know the man is not going to let nobody play you for a fool. So now we got the politicians playing around with the women in the church. Do you know how much influence women that go to church has? I mean, somebody talk to me. So now I want to come back down and bring it to my demonstration. Why are white Christians voting Republican? Why are black Christians voting Democrat? Well, it's simple. It's simple. Because white Christians, they don't want the Bible to change. They don't want the Bible to change. Why should they want the Bible to change? When you think about all Republican presidents, think about Trump. Trump is running as Republican. Trump is trying to stick to the values, the morals, and the core of the Bible because he's a Republican. White Republicans don't want anything to change. So that's why white Christians vote Republican. Now, black Christians, they going to the Democrat side of things. Why do they go to the Democrat side of things? Because they know if we go to the Democrat side of things, the Democrat is going to make us these promises, and in the whole Christianity philosophy, it's all about promises. It's all about receiving heaven after you then pass on to another lifestyle. It's never receiving heaven here on earth. Shank, you losing me, man. What are you talking about heaven being on earth? Sure, heaven is on earth. You didn't know that? Can anybody give me an amen that heaven is on earth? Sure. Sure, heaven is on earth. But if the Democrat Party is not releasing us, how can we receive anything on earth? Hell, how can we receive heaven on earth? We can't even get civil rights on earth. Salute everybody. Salute everybody. I see everybody down there. Salute the full life. Time on my side. Sharon, salute. I will jump to the chat, y'all. Miss G, salute. Mel says, time on my side says, can't receive without struggle. Sharon says, amen. Mel says, where in the Bible does it reference discrimination or disenfranchisement of a group of people? I mean, Aunt Esther says, that's a damn shame. I mean, let's go back to the days of Moses when God's people were held in captivity. I mean, God's people were being discriminated. And that's just not only in the story of Moses, that's all the way from the 5 books of Moses all the way to the New Testament. And even in the New Testament, it speaks about what you just asked, the discrimination. Remember in the New Testament, Rome discriminated against the Jews that was in Rome. Jesus was falsely crucified. Jesus was stoned to death for telling the truth. He didn't commit a crime. Usually when someone is stoned to death, usually they commit a crime. But Jesus only spoke out against the injustice that was going on, handed down from the Romans to the Jews. Did the Bible say it was right to do that, or are we supposed to change? Ms. Groovy says accused of a crime he didn't commit. How many of us have been accused of a crime we didn't commit? That falls under the category of discrimination. That could be a part of discrimination, falsely accused. All right.
This pudding can help us understand Christian nationalism.
Let's see what this guy's saying.
Everyone seems to be talking about Christian nationalism these days. Politicians, preachers, pundits, scholars, everyone has something to say about this issue. Some of them are proudly wearing the label, while others are writing books to denounce the movement. One book is by Andrew Whitehead and Samuel Perry. Both of them are professors of sociology. In it, they define Christian nationalism as the belief that America has been and should always be distinctively Christian from top to bottom. In its self-identity, interpretations of its own history, sacred symbols, cherished values, and public policies, and it aims to keep it this way. Now, some of you hear that and might think, that doesn't sound so bad. After all, wouldn't America be better if distinctly Christian values filled the country? But what exactly does that mean? For example, which Christian values are we talking about? There are thousands of churches and denominations in the U.S., and we're deeply divided over all kinds of stuff. Christians are split over things like gender roles, the nature of sin, the definition of marriage. Good grief, we can't even agree on how many books are in the Bible and whether we should take Sunday or Saturday as a day of rest. And what about all of the fellow citizens around us who aren't Christians? What place do they get to have in a country that is supposed to be Christian from top to bottom? As you can tell, there are lots of questions and critiques out there about Christian nationalism, and most of them focus on how the movement is both deeply un-American and dangerously un-Christian. And we've talked about it a lot on the Holy Post. I'm including some links in the show notes below the video with the best conversations and interviews we've done on the topic. But I want to talk about something a little bit different today. I want to get to the real core problem of Christian nationalism, a core problem that I think often gets overlooked in all the details. And that brings me back to the pudding. So buckle up, a little more history here. Back in 1999, Healthy Choice Frozen Foods and Snacks launched a promotion that allowed customers to redeem barcodes from their product labels for frequent flyer miles. And a guy in California named David Phillips soon found a way to game the promotion when he realized that each individual pudding cup made by Healthy Choice had a barcode. And those pudding cups were just pennies per cup, way cheaper than their larger frozen meals. So he bought over 12,000 pudding cups, wherever he could find them, and his plan worked. In the end, he earned over 1.3 million miles, the equivalent of 30 flights around the world, and a lifetime platinum status with American Airlines. And he did it all with just $3,000 worth of pudding. Now, here's the important part. David Phillips doesn't care at all about pudding. In fact, he didn't even keep the pudding. He donated it to the Salvation Army. What he really wanted were the frequent flyer miles. The pudding was just a convenient method to reach his goal. It was a means to an end. The point of all of this is that what David Phillips did to pudding is exactly what Christian nationalism does to Christ. In the end, Christian nationalism does not really care about Jesus. He's not the goal. Sure, Christian nationalists may talk a lot about God and Jesus and biblical values, just like David Phillips was all over town trying to buy pudding cups. In fact, people started calling him the pudding guy because from all appearances it looked like he was all about pudding. But underneath the surface, he had another goal in mind. Similarly, Christian nationalists may appear on the outside to be all about Christianity, with their flags and crosses and signs, but deeper down, their actual goal is not Christianity. Christianity is just a device, a tool that they use to achieve their real goal, which is about cultural and political power. They talk very little about a life with God, but a lot about all the blessings they expect to get from God for themselves and for their country. And here's the interesting part. When you actually read and listen to Christian nationalists, they don't hide this fact. They talk very openly about using Christian faith or using Christian values or using the Bible or even using Jesus to get what they really want.
Sound familiar? Now, the nationalists, Christian nationalists, why are the politicians playing with the Bible? Why are the politicians playing with the Bible? Ms. Groovy says a lot of our black men have been falsely accused and unalive where the white women live to have these amazing lives into old age. That still pisses me off. Why have the politicians been playing with the Bible? Salute Marie. Salute Marie. Why are they playing with the Bible?
A lot is the same when we think about the issues, and then there is significant differences. The stakes in 2024 are even higher. Because consider that the United States Supreme Court recently just basically told the former president that going forward he will be effectively immune no matter what he does in the White House. Now just imagine, well, the courts are gonna take care of that. We're gonna get him out of, we're gonna elect ourselves and everybody here in November.
That's not what I want, y'all. Salute Sabrina. Give me a minute, y'all. Give me a minute. That's not what I want. Give me a minute to find this clip. Ms. Groovy says they only use it when it's convenient for them. They use it because they spew a few verses and folks believe them. And when you tell the folks that have been deceived, if you tell a Christian right now that they've been deceived by the book, and not so much of the book, but by the person that's reading the book to them, if you tell them, if you call a preacher out, if you call the pastor out, I can promise you right now, if I say something about a black pastor, I promise you, they will condemn me. If I go to any black Christian and tell a black Christian, go to your pastor and ask your pastor, when God created Adam and Eve, and he said, let us make man in our image, go ask your preacher, who was God talking about when he said, let us make God in our image? And I promise you, that black preacher is going to tell that congregation member, stay your ass away from Shank Rock crazy. What he mean? What he mean who God was talking about? See, let me tell you. But the plane that I'm landing is when you tell them how the politicians have deceived them, when you tell them how the Catholic Church has deceived them, you're going to be looked upon as a person that's evil, that don't know what you're talking about, and so forth and so forth. I'm coming, y'all. I need to find this. I need to find this. So when you have someone like Trump, this is what leads up to the demonstration. Trump wants to know. Now, when you got somebody like Trump keep it real. Say what you want to say about him. He keeps it real. Right? Jesus was falsely accused. Yes or no? So just because one is accused of a crime doesn't necessarily mean they're guilty. And even though according to Roman law, they found them guilty and they stoned them to death, but what did they find them guilty of? If you think about it, why was Jesus Christ stoned to death? Why was Jesus Christ crucified? Why was he nailed to the cross? In the Christian belief, Jesus was nailed to the cross. Why was he nailed to the cross? We can stop right there. Ms. Groovy says, I asked my mom if she believed everything in the Bible. She said yes. I said, how, when there are 13 books taken out, so it can't be the unadulterated truth with books missing? Facts. And when you say this to Christians, they're going to look at you dumbfounded. Well, if the Bibles was took out, then God wanted them took out. Everything, when you talk to a Christian, it's always a God or devil. It's always. Why did they take the books out? Who took the books out? How do you know they took the books out? Right? Well, see, they took them books out because God touched them. I mean, can we talk? Can we be honest? Why did they take the book of Barnabas out? Why didn't even include the book of Barnabas in the Bible? Why the book of Enoch? They made a movie about the book of Enoch. Yes or no? And y'all still don't believe that they didn't put everything in that Bible? Adam had another wife. Eve wasn't Adam's only wife. The book of Barnabas contains 18 years of Jesus Christ's life that they didn't put in there. There's a lot of things that's missing in the Bible. If Adam and Eve, as we was taught, if Adam and Eve were the first people on the earth, where did everybody else come from? Because if Adam and Eve had children, follow me, and if the children of Adam and Eve had children, isn't that incest? You over there, can you answer that question? Isn't that incest? If Adam and Eve were the first people on the earth, and Adam and Eve had children, now Adam and Eve's children had children, isn't that incest? What happened to Cain when he killed his brother Abel. Cain said, if the people find me, they're going to attack me. They're going to come after me. They're going to kill me. So God put the mark on Cain's forehead, and God sent Cain into a land called Nod, N-O-D. And Cain went in the land of Nod and found him a wife, who was the people in the land of the Nod. Take these questions that I'm giving you, take it to your preacher, and see what your preacher gonna say. Ask your preacher to answer the question that I'm giving you to ask him. Ask your preacher. If Adam and Eve were first, how did everybody else come? Wouldn't it be incest if Adam and Eve's children had sex with each other? That's incest. Right? Ask the preacher. Tell the preacher to pull up over here. He went into the land of Nod, Cain, and he found his wife in that land. What people were they if Adam and Eve were first? See, it's there. It's all there. It's so much in the Bible that's there. Why do Revelations sound like a science fiction movie? Dragons, four-headed monsters. It's a reason why in Revelations it speaks about animals. Why in the political world the donkey represents a party and the elephant represents a party. Here comes these animals. Right? See, now I got you thinking. That's where I want you at. Put your thinking caps on. I got you thinking now. Damn, Shankrock made a good point there. That's a good question that Shankrock threw out there. Huh? See? Why? If Trump, because you know now, if Trump was such of the person that they say he is, why he ain't locked up? It ain't adding up. The math ain't adding up. Now, I'm not saying that Trump isn't who people say he is. I'm not saying that. But how do you make it out of the White House? How do you make it out of office without showing your taxes? How do you get out of there with all the turmoil? And it's just so much. Y'all could drop in the chat some of the things that Trump was accused of.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday. I hope you're having a wonderful Labor Day weekend. We have a very special program for you, two-part program, tonight and tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern as well. My interview with President Trump. Now, let me tell you something that's unique about this interview. I don't interview President Trump a lot. Last time was about a year and a half ago, March 2023.
points, and then he had to get out of the race, and now they gave me a new one. But I think we're doing very well. Nobody's ever had a double, you know, you have to beat one, and when that person doesn't do well, they say, that's all right, we'll take them out, we'll put a new one in. But I think we're doing very well.
Hopefully they don't yank her and then put a third one in. You never know
That'll
that.
happen, I'm sure.
First of all, we're here for a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is you have a fantastic new book that's coming out. And I'll tell you what's amazing about this book to me as I went through it. And you make your notes, you have comments in your book. The pictures are beautiful. A couple of things. Number one, your attachment to working Americans. There's Hollywood, there's the athletes. You saw the Democrat convention. You had one entertainer after another after. Your book is heavy with firefighters, police officers, coal miners, people who drill for oil, truckers, common people. So let me ask you this. You spent most of your life around these people. You were a developer, you were a builder, electricians, plumbers, construction workers of every kind. You created thousands and thousands of middle-class jobs with pensions, medical insurance, and so forth and so on. Why do you think your opponents get away with claiming to represent the little guy, the middle class, the blue-collar worker, when they have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with them? And you've spent your entire life around them.
Well, certainly, I had two opponents. I had Biden, and then he disappeared a couple of weeks ago at their insistence. And we had a debate, and the debate was a good debate, and he was 18 or 20 points down, and they went to see him, and they said, we want you out, you're not going to win. And you started hearing those rumors, and then all of a sudden he was gone, and they gave me a new one who never got a vote. In all fairness to him, I'm not a fan of his, but he had 14 million votes. He worked for a year to win. She actually started off with him, when you think. But he worked for a year to win, he won, and then they threw him out when they say, this is not a democracy. Okay, when you think about it, what is that all about? She never got a vote. But regardless, so then they gave me her, and he's a very angry man, but he's gone. And now I have Kamala. I call her Comrade Kamala because she's radical left. She's a radical left Marxist. And that's what she is. And she'll destroy our country. There's not going to be any fracking in Pennsylvania. And for her whole life, there was none. She fought people like I've never seen anything like it. Look at the way she fought Justice Kavanaugh, the viciousness and the violence. She's a Marxist. She's worse, much higher in the scale than Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren.
And we're going to stop right there. I'm not going to keep y'all that much longer. I wasn't expecting this demonstration to go this far, but I'm going to ask y'all, who will destroy America? Will it be Trump or will it be Kamala? I will take this remaining time to answer y'all comments. Who will destroy America? Will it be Trump or will it be Kamala? Make sure y'all pull back up at 7 o'clock for a Shanquilla Robinson demonstration. Conscious Moron says Trump. Ms. Gruey says, so he is calling Kamala an angry black woman. One thing that I will say, there are a lot of angry black women. And we got to call a spade a spade. Now, all black women aren't angry, but there are a lot of angry black women. Let's just face that fact. See, what I don't want to do is, as a black man, I don't want to be on a plantation and I have to choose between master, which is a white man, and a house nigga, which is a black person. I don't want to have to make that choice because me, if I'm on a plantation and I got to choose between a house nigga and master, I'm going to choose master. Now, my question is Kamala a house nigga? I'll wait. Let's talk. I'm about to get on one, y'all. Let's talk. Conscious Moron says she not one of them. She laughed too much. If we're going to go with Trump being a racist, are we going to ask the same question about Kamala? Is Kamala a house nigga? Yes or no? Some of y'all could call Trump a racist and back it up. So can you answer the question whether or not Kamala is a house nigga? Come on, you can answer the question. Come on, I'm on one today. Come on. Positive Vibes says you going to be the cleaner. Conscious says the fact that you have to think about choosing between house nigga and the slave owner says a lot. Conscious Moron says no, she not one of those. What is she? I mean, come on now, what is she? Is she being played by the Democrat Party? Is Kamala being used as a tool? Remember, man and woman, go back to the Democrat Party. Go back to the demonstration. Black women make up 8 out of 10 members in the black church, and everybody know it's easy to manipulate a black woman, especially a black woman in church. I'm for the smoke. Black women, bring the smoke. I ain't talking about all black women. I'm talking about certain black women. Y'all can bring the smoke all day. Because, see, I'm tired of playing. Tired of playing. I got to choose the house nigga over master. Oh, you don't know that we on a plantation? Right. Right. You right there in the back. You forgot? We on a plantation. You know about plantation life. Sure you do. You watched all them slavery movies. Sure you did. You know about master. You know about the house nigga. You know about the field nigga. You know. Which one you gonna choose? Master? You know what master is about. And one thing about master will respect you if you represent a man or a woman. Master will respect you. But you and I know the house nigga don't like you. You seen Django. How many of y'all seen Django? Drop a 1 in the chat if you seen Django. See, Samuel L. Jackson character was a house nigga. Huh? He ain't like Django. He ain't like Jamie Foxx at all. Nothing about Jamie Foxx Samuel L. Jackson liked. But see, Master, he respected Jamie. He respected Django. Yes or no? Because Django came correct. If you come correct, if you stand as a man, Master will respect you. If you talk like you got some sense, if you learn the language, he'll respect you. But the house nigga don't like nothing about you. Because the house nigga don't even like him or herself. We want to talk? Let's talk. I'm tired of the BS. I'm tired of playing the gray area with y'all. Tired of it. It's time that I give y'all the facts. It's time that I tell y'all the truth. I don't care how many of y'all don't pull back up. I don't care how many Facebook friends I lose. Because y'all ain't my goddamn friends in real time. I don't care how many of y'all leave. Because y'all not with me in real time. But I'm going to use this time to speak facts. Go to your pastor and tell your pastor you got some questions that you need to ask him or her. Because nowadays, you got a lot of black women that's pastors. You even got transformers that are pastors. And those transformers are leading the congregation to hell. Y'all see it. Don't act like you don't see it. you know damn well something ain't right with your pastor. But let me guess, I'ma pray for pastor. You better pray for your own ass and keep your own ass from going to hell. Because pastor ain't praying for you. Pastor praying on your dumb ass. He ain't praying for you. He praying that you bring your dumb ass to church with that money. Let the church say amen. Let the church say amen. See, it come a time when out with the old and with the new. Y'all want to know why these young folks is the way they are? You know why they are the way they are? And we think it's them. You don't see these young folks in church. These young boys ain't going to church. These young girls ain't going to church. Because they see it for what it is. They know if the church, if it was what it say it is, then why are we in the condition that we are in now? The church has failed us. If the church didn't fail us, why are we in the condition that we in? The church say, come as you are. The church say you could stay, you could do whatever you want to do. Y'all know I'm not lying. Y'all know I'm not lying. Everybody knows somebody in church that's fake. Everybody knows, at least somebody. I appreciate everybody for pulling up. I just had to get off my heart what was on my heart. I see everybody back at 7 p.m. for justice for Shanquilla Robinson. Salute everybody.